What's up, everybody? On today's show is Mark Stoops leaving Kentucky for College Station. The latest rumblings from over at Texas A&M and Mississippi State. Are they zeroing on Jeff Lebby as their next head coach? We'll get you caught up on all the latest rumors going on around the SEC. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, we got plenty to discuss, and we'll start with the big news of the day, your headliner, as our buddy Mark Passwaters over at Aggie Yell was first to report Saturday evening that Mark Stoops, the current Kentucky football coach, he says, barring a last-minute collapse, sources tell Aggie Yell Kentucky coach Mark Stoops is likely to be the next head coach at Texas A&M. And then not too soon after, 24/7 Sports reporting breaking. Texas A&M is expected to soon finalize its hiring of Kentucky head coach Mark Stoops. Of course, Rivals and 24/7 both reporting that. But the search for the new A&M coach has been going for the last couple weeks after they paid $77 million to Jimbo Fisher to go bye-bye. And it's a search that has been pretty extensive. I mean, they have looked all around. Of course, Mike Elko at Duke was considered one of the top candidates. Jeff Traylor as well at UTSA, Jed Fish over in Arizona. And then even as recent as Saturday afternoon, we saw Dabo Swinney's name got thrown in there as well. So there's been a lot of names circling around, but Ross Bjork, the A&M AD, ultimately picks Mark Stoops at Kentucky, the Youngstown, Ohio product, the younger brother of former Oklahoma head coach Bob Stoops. And Mark Stoops, 56, came to Kentucky in 2013, 11 seasons with the Wildcats. He compiled a 73-64 record, the all-time winningest head coach in program history. They got a big win on Saturday, beat number 10 Louisville 38-31 on the road. And Kentucky improved to 7-5 this season. But he's really done a phenomenal job there in Lexington. Before they hired Stoops, Kentucky only had one 10-win season since 1951. Under Mark Stoops, they've had a couple of 10-win seasons. 2018 when he won SEC Coach of the Year, and 2021 going 10-3 in both those years. Kentucky also finished with 7 or more victories in 7 of his last 8 seasons. He's won 4 straight bowl games. And again, Mark Stoops, they were ready to build him a statue outside Kroger Field there in Lexington. I mean, he has been all that and more for that program and has been very, very good. Now, look, it's a mixed bag. Looking at some of the reaction on social media, some, the national folks saying this is a good hire, good get for Texas A&M, the resources that they have. Stoops is going to bring a lot to that program, and there are a lot of people naysaying it as well. Some people questioning it, looking at TexAgs, the message board for A&M. A lot of people saying Ross Bjork needs to go. This is a terrible hire. What are we doing? We got rid of Jimbo Fisher just to go get the Kentucky coach. That's what some people are saying here. It's also worth noting Mark Stoops did say earlier this month, if you recall, after he lost to Georgia, he was on his coach's show and he said, quote, "I can promise you, Georgia, they bought some pretty good players. You're allowed to these days, and we could use some help." That's what they look like. You know what I mean? When you have 85 of them, I encourage anybody that's disgruntled to pony up some more. That was Mark Stoops basically saying, look, you can buy players now in the NIL age. Y'all need to pony up some more money if you want our roster to look like Georgia's roster, which was, of course, filled with 4- and 5-star talent everywhere. Few places have better resources than Texas A&M has. So he's going to have a lot of resources to do what he wants when it comes to recruiting. style of football, how's that going to look in College Station? Obviously, Stoops always has hard-nosed defenses, always tough up front. He's going to get a loaded front there at Texas A&M. But the offenses been very intermittent there at Kentucky. Remember a couple years back, we're not far removed from them having to play a wide receiver at quarterback. Then they had a good run with Will Levis, who ended up being a high draft pick, and then Devin Leary coming in, the prize of the transfer portal this offseason from NC State. He was good, not great. Liam Cohen came back. Would Liam Cohen be a candidate to follow Mark Stoops to A&M? We'll see as he will have to build his staff out. But other people reacting on social media, Aaron Murray, the former Georgia quarterback, now analyst, he tweeted out, Texas A&M spending $75 million to fire Jimbo Fisher to then bring in Mark Stoops. I like Mark Stoops, but I would be pissed if I was an Aggies fan. Doesn't seem like much of an upgrade. Stoops 35-55 in conference play as a head coach at Kentucky. 2 winning seasons, but never finished better than 5-3 in SEC play. And he's been coaching the SEC East where, Florida was having their ups and downs. Georgia obviously has become a behemoth here in recent years under Kirby Smart, but and then there's the thought that Stoops makes $9 million a year. I mean, he's one of the highest paid coaches already. He could have stayed comfortable in Lexington and been, he's already their all-time winningest coach. He could have been there for the next decade and gone 7-5 and 8-4 and had a bunch of those kind of seasons and probably would not have been on the hot seat. Probably could have just kept enjoying that success and the fans loved him and all that kind of stuff. So now you raise expectations going to College Station where they're not, they got rid of the last guy because they don't like 7-5, 8-4. They want better than that. It's a lot of pressure on Mark Stoops. And, of course, Texas and Oklahoma coming into the conference changes a lot of this as well. Going to make it that much more difficult, the road there. But we'll be interested to see when the details come out on, the buyout he has at Kentucky. What's that cost to get him out of there on top of what you already paid Jimbo Fisher to go away? So it's going to be fascinating to watch how this thing plays out. But, again, we're expecting, depending on when you guys are listening to this or watching it, an official announcement on Sunday and probably a press conference pretty quickly to get Mark Stoops down to College Station to be introduced as the new Texas A&M head coach. Now, the question becomes, where does Kentucky go from here? Because, you're losing a head coach. Pretty good job. A lot of candidates going to throw their name into the hat, but one, our buddy Brad Logan throws out there. He said, should Mark Stoops be named the head coach at Texas A&M? I expect Troy head coach John Summerall to be the top target for the University of Kentucky. He said, I think Kentucky got the better end of this deal when it's all said and done. John Summerall, 41 years old, played his college ball at Kentucky back in the early 2000s, was a linebacker there, was a grad assistant, had coaching stints at San Diego, Tulane, as an assistant at Troy. Then he was Ole Miss's linebackers coach in 2018 before he went back to Kentucky as their linebackers coach 2019-2020, became co-defensive coordinator in 2021. And he's been at Troy the last 2 years as their head coach. And he's been phenomenal. 12-2 last year, 10-2 this year. Won the Cure Bowl a year ago, 7-1 in conference play both years, finished first place in the Western standings in the Sun Belt. 22-4 in 2 years coaching. That's absolutely phenomenal there at a program like Troy. I think John Summerall would be a home run hire for Kentucky. And again, a guy who's 41 who, he could be at Kentucky for the next 10, 15 years. So a lot of dominoes to fall here, but John Summerall, first name that's kind of thrown out there as a potential heir apparent or replacement to Mark Stoops. As the reports, again, out of College Station, Mark Stoops expected to be the next Texas A&M head football coach. Look, there were rumblings a year ago or 2 years ago when LSU was making their change, when they fired Coach O, and before they had hired Brian Kelly, there were rumblings LSU had reached out to Mark Stoops' agent and were kind of vetting and were interested in him. And again, kind of same thing, mixed bag. LSU fans some liked it, some didn't. Again, you can do a lot worse than hiring a Mark Stoops. It's just a program like A&M. They have huge high expectations through the roof. Just don't know if Mark Stoops is going to be that guy to get you there. He'll keep you solid. I mean, Jimbo Fisher, the bottom falling out a year ago and going 5-7. I don't think it'll get that bad ever under Mark Stoops. But what's his ceiling? Is it 9 wins? 10 wins at Kentucky, but granted, the road gets tougher here with Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC. So, you lose the SEC East and the SEC West. So maybe there's years where you get Vanderbilt and South Carolina and, some of the tougher teams. And, maybe you avoid Georgia and Alabama some years. So dominoes could always fall your way in certain years. But it'll be fascinating to see. Again, what do you guys think? You can let us know in the comments on our YouTube page. Are you down with Mark Stoops being the next head coach at Texas A&M? It'd be really interesting to see how this one plays out, but he's got a lot of resources there with NIL. All right, we'll talk a little bit on Mississippi State's head coaching search with the latest news coming from Ross Dellinger in just a sec. This episode is presented to you by our friends over at the Game Time app. Look, you guys are looking for maybe tickets to the SEC championship game this weekend or some of the other conference championship games, of course, bowl games. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big sporting event. Game Time is the fast and easy way for you to buy tickets for all the sporting events near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. Again, you can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And they're all in prices. Show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. I just did it last weekend, bought tickets to an NFL game on the Game Time app. Super easy. The all-in price was exactly the price I paid, and you can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps of your finger. So go take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed on the Game Time app. All right, continue on here on a special edition of Locked On SEC, talking the latest rumblings out there with the Kentucky head coach Mark Stoops, the news coming out that he is indeed heading to Texas A&M. So again, waiting to hear all the specifics and the official news, but 24/7 Sports and Rivals both reporting it out there, and we'll of course keep you guys up to date on all the latest with that. It was a crazy Saturday. We'll recap all this stuff coming up on a Monday show with our winners and losers of the weekend. But of course, we had Auburn having Alabama beat on a fourth and goal from the 31, and Jalen Milroe throws a dime to was it Bond, and Alabama escapes Auburn with a win, and Bama keeps their playoff hopes alive. LSU comes back. Jaden Daniels has a nice day to beat Texas A&M, and is he the Heisman favorite? We'll discuss all that stuff coming to you on Monday. But I wanted to get back into it as Ross Dellinger is reporting. Of course, Ross does a great job and with Yahoo and all the different outlets throughout the years. But he's reporting Mississippi State is targeting Oklahoma offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby as their next head coach. Again, that's Ross Dellinger reporting, according to sources at Yahoo Sports. He said, deal not done yet, but discussions are expected to result in a hire. Lebby is a former assistant under some good offensive minds like Art Briles, Josh Heupel, Lane Kiffin. He's 39 years old, the current offense coordinator at Oklahoma. Of course, he was the OC at Ole Miss the 2 previous seasons under Lane Kiffin there, and then was at UCF prior to that under Josh Heupel when he was the head coach there. But what a lot of people jump to with Jeff Lebby is his experience at Baylor. And, of course, was there during the 2015 Baylor football scandal that led to the termination of Art Briles. Jeff Lebby defended Briles. He's also Lebby's father-in-law. Sold shirts with hashtag CAB, which stood for Coach Art Briles, to show continued support. So he was, a lot of people are very critical of him for that. But he's been in Oklahoma, finalized a deal back in late 2021, heading into 2022 to be the Sooners' new offensive coordinator. And his contract with Oklahoma was for 3 years, $5.7 million. During this past season, following 2 consecutive disappointing performances from the Sooners offense against Kansas and Oklahoma State, a lot of people facing Lebby or giving Lebby some harsh criticism. So, we're going to see if that is indeed the guy that will go to Mississippi State. But 39 years old, young, catch a rising star is kind of what Mississippi State is thinking here. And, you just had Zach Arnett, who the offense was absolutely, bottomed out. You went from Mike Leach in the air raid to, I don't know what that was. They were running this past year under Kevin Barbe, but it was not successful. And so now you bring in a guy who has a track record of success with offense. So, again, hoping to catch a rising star, a guy that if he hits, could be at Mississippi State for many, many years, and maybe bring them that success that Dan Mullen had there. And of course, the success that Mike Leach was having prior to his passing. But I understand some people are going to be critical. Jeff Lebby isn't, it's a name that is a little bit of a hot button because of his time at Baylor and that kind of stuff. But we'll see. Sounds like that will be the guy at Mississippi State. So there you have it. Those are the two biggest two biggest moves in the SEC coaching world, and we'll see what the other dominoes are to fall here. Of course, we talk about the guys who came into the season on the hot seat. I thought maybe Eli Drinkwitz could fall in that category. He was phenomenal, had a fantastic season, and so Eli's going to be fine. And my opinion, he should be SEC Coach of the Year. Josh Heupel's got a little retooling he needs to do there at Tennessee. Shane Beamer at South Carolina put up a good fight, at least defensively, against Clemson, but the offense stunk. And really 2 names to watch are Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, which I've said, look, you lose 10 in a row, another winless season in the SEC, maybe go a different route. But I understand if they want to stick with Clark Lee and think he could turn this thing around. And then the other one is Florida, Billy Napier. Obviously finishes, was 5-2 just a couple weeks ago, finishes the season now 5-7. Again, put up a good fight against Florida State. But that's the team with their backup quarterback in. And I know you had your backup quarterback in, Max Brown, but Florida was up 12-0, and they end up losing by double digits or whatever it was in the end. Billy Napier, there's some big thoughts there in Gainesville on what they're going to do here, because he's got a top 10 recruiting class. It was top 5. I know it's kind of fluctuating with some kids maybe in or out of the class, whatever. But, my opinion, if you're Florida, you stick with Billy Napier for another year, see what he can do with that recruiting class and get all that talent in there. But could be a change there. We know Arkansas, Hunter Yurchak coming out and saying they're standing by Sam Pittman, and he's going to be back next year. But, man, it was rough to watch on Friday as Arkansas got absolutely dismantled, 48-14. And that was the second straight SEC loss. They lost to Auburn before that, 48-10. I think it was 48-14. Got some big issues there. KJ Jefferson left the game. Jacoby Criswell came in. I can use that as an excuse for why the offense wasn't very good. But why was the defense so bad in these games for Arkansas? A lot of retooling that's got to happen there. Hugh Freeze, of course, safe at Auburn. Brian Kelly at LSU, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, and safe at Alabama. So, again, 2 names to watch. See what happens with Florida and Billy Napier. We'll see what happens with Clark Lee at Vandy. I think Shane Beamer's cool. Again, and Sam Pittman already got the vote of confidence over there at Arkansas. So, yeah, going to be really interesting to see how these dominoes shake out as Mark Stoops now heads to College Station to be the next Texas A&M head coach. And we'll see where Kentucky goes with their replacement. But again, John Summerall, a name, that makes a lot of sense for the folks in Lexington. All right, that is going to do it for this shortened edition of latest coaching rumors out there in the SEC world. Again, make sure you guys tune in on Monday for our winners and losers here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. We'll talk to you guys then. Come on back and join us.